You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode number 159, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch, Overwatch esports, and see what's buzzing within the community in this week's hot community topics. But before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar. And Ed, you know, it's been a pretty wild week in the Overwatch League. We had some pretty major upsets. We've got the Stage 2 playoffs on the horizon, which, you know, really starts tomorrow. We got the All-Star game in the not-so-distant future. We got more details on that. Some pretty cool stuff hit in the workshop. There's a lot to be excited about right now within Overwatch, but how has this past week been treating you?
It's been pretty good, actually. You know, it's, I mean, you have Game of Thrones on.
Mm-hmm.
You have Avengers Endgame. If you have not seen it, go see it. I've seen it 3 times now.
Number 2 all-time.
Yes. I don't know if it's going to hit number 1. It could, but I'm not going to guarantee it. You know, we saw some pretty good Overwatch this weekend. And, you know, I played a lot of Hearthstone. I played a decent amount of Overwatch. The event's over. I got the one skin I wanted, the Junkrat one. The rest I could care less about. And yeah, that's about it. How's yours been?
It's not been me getting legendary skins from the event. A lot of that was just due to the fact that I've been fairly busy. I haven't really been playing Storm Rising. So this is probably the event where I got the least amount of playtime in. And due to that, that also meant, by definition, I got the least amount of stuff unlocked. So, you know, which is fine. You know, there's
missing much.
There's always stuff that, you know, I thought was okay. There wasn't anything like I felt like I 100% needed to get, and, you know, even if it was something I was on the fence about, you know, maybe I'll look at getting it next year whenever we have more, lackluster stuff. I mean, I hate to say it, but, you know, that is, Archives in the nutshell. But outside of that, it's been a pretty busy week. You know, we've had some really weird, it's been raining so much, and for whatever reason, people keep shopping, despite how crappy the weather has been. But, you know, I've been keeping busy with Mortal Kombat 11 still, grinding Towers of Time, consistently hitting, like, the top 8% every week, before the reset hits. But outside of that, I've just been really enjoying, you know, still messing around in the workshop over on the PTR. But of course, you know, right now it is Overwatch League, focus, because we do have the Stage 2 Plus, which I'm excited about, and, no, we have 2 teams that are coming in very hot right now, which are more than likely going to be in the finals, just like they were for stage number 1. But let's go ahead and jump into the news. So first up, we do have a new map hitting the live servers, that being Havana Unana. You know, you can't say Havana without saying it. So, you know, that's the new escort map that was part of the Archives event, that being Storm Rising. And of course, you know, you got the upbeat, Cuban-centric soundtrack that was with the event. You had the 3 distinct parts of the map pretty much remaining the same. So, you know, with all new maps, right now, Havana is available in quick play and custom modes, as well as, you know, they have a special arcade mode available as well. So you can go check out the new map and, you know, maybe get a couple of loot boxes along the way for your arcade boxes. But you're still gonna have to wait a couple of weeks before Havana enters a competitive map pool here. So it's probably gonna be, you know, another 2-3 weeks, or, you know, whatever the normal waiting period is. But I want to say Spider was working on another Havana YouTube video, but I don't know if he got it out in time, because he didn't. I don't think he figured that it would be going live today, and sure enough, you know, they kind of dropped it on us along with a couple of other balance changes that was like hidden in mid-April, I want to say.
Yeah, no, it's. Have you had a chance to play the Havana map?
Very, very limited, and that was only on the PTR.
Okay, I played it a couple times. It's a fun map. It's very 90-degree oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's all about the 90-degree curves.
So it's Rialto.
Yeah, essentially it's Rialto. And it definitely limits certain heroes due to that. Like, I've noticed on, let's say, point A, you're like, okay, wide open buildings get Pharah. Pharah's not the best because it's very easy to just stay away from her. There's lots of pillars to hide behind. There's lots of, corners she has to get over, but she can't fly over the buildings. So she's not as effective as I first thought. It is a sniper-friendly map. The last point is gonna be tricky, just because it's a very choke point last point. As you can see from entering the castle or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, storming the castle.
Fortress. Yeah. It's a very, it reminds me a little bit of Blizzard World, the last point of Blizzard World, where you're trying to get through that last little choke point, and there's not much access to do it. But it's a fun map. I'm excited. It's better than Paris.
I mean, I'm still a little upset that you can't, in fact, drink the rum and shoot the cannons. Eventually, I'm gonna get over that. This week is not the time, though.
Well, they don't have any bartenders to serve the rum because you shot them all.
Well, I mean, they're in a completely different area of the world, Ed. Come on.
Well, where do you think they get the replacements at?
The factory?
You can't just constantly pump them out.
I mean, you can if you're in Russia.
In the rate you're killing them, they can't.
I mean, I guess that is fair. But speaking of other map news, Numbani kind of, vanished for, 2 or 3 weeks, kind of out of the blue, where, wasn't even see him playing competitive, and you would really only see it appearing in arcade and custom modes. Now, it's magically back. It is returned from the Abyss. It was not retired or anything like that. And it turns out the reason behind his appearance was really no reason at all. I guess, it just something happened, whether it was a bug or whatever, it just wasn't appearing. And I know a lot of people were, trying to connect the dots and, do fan theories about, maybe there was some sort of connection with Storm Rising, and that was a reason why it wasn't in the map pool. That was not actually the case, so that myth was busted. But, Numbani is back, so everyone can look forward to, not seeing the end of the map more times than not when they are playing it on the competitive ladder, when everyone doesn't know how to dive the high ground on point number A. Or letter
A. I mean, it was weird how it wasn't there. I mean, I didn't notice it because I didn't know enough, but I think it's funny that Blizzard didn't mention anything until they put it back in the game. They're like, thanks for the heads up. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But yeah, no, it was pretty funny. I'm glad it's back. I like Numbani.
Yeah, it's not like they added anything or tweaked anything to the map either. It was just gone.
Yeah. Like, somebody got fired for that. Somebody was coding and I might have accidentally just deleted a map. My bad. And it's on live. So sorry about that, but yeah, no, why couldn't they have deleted Paris? I would have been a fan of that. Nobody would have been give me back Paris.
I mean, then I couldn't kill the Omnic butlers and bartenders at that point.
And then you could theoretically be drinking the rum in Havana. No.
I mean, this is all starting to make sense now. Well, you know what? At least on the PTR, when I'm hopping on, when I'm playing on Paris, I can go ahead and ping the Omnic butlers and bartenders as a target, because there are ping systems that have popped up in the workshop, which I'm happy to see. So this is coming from Darwin Streams, who has, tried to mirror kind of like what Apex Legends has done with their ping system, and I know a lot of people have been looking for something like this for Overwatch. Now, what the system provides is 4 different commands that will activate an icon on the ping location or in the direction if that ping is off screen. So you can tell players to group up. You're able to label like an objective or like something to attack. So attack a position. You're able to mark an enemy, so you can have a focus target. You could also ask for support. So this is primarily for the healers. So you could ask for teammates appeal for you in order to protect you. Now, for the most part, this tool is definitely going to come in handy in regards to, stacking in competitive as well as team scrim situations. And I have to say, Ed, for a long time now, there really haven't been, like, a lot of, like, map callouts that we have seen. I know, like, at one point, we had maybe a couple of maps that kind of had, like, that 3D viewpoint where it tried to, like, label every part of the map, but that was never really expanded upon. And how vital do you think a system like this is going to be to just make things a little bit easier to communicate with your team in competitive, knowing that, not everyone is going to either have a mic or be talkative for that matter?
No, I think I've been pretty adamant. One of the first things I brought up when I got the workshop was I want the ping system. And I think it allows people to play the game as a team without having to talk to each other. Or in certain Overwatch League teams' cases, that language barrier doesn't go away, but it's severely diminished. Mm-hmm. Like if in an Overwatch League, you can call out targets through the ping system, you can call out I need peeling or whatnot in game. It reduces the amount of confusion that can happen through language barriers. I think the only thing out of these 4 that they're missing is somehow pinging flankers that you may see, like person over here or something of that nature. But yeah, I think this is amazing, and I think Blizzard should implement this as soon as possible. Obviously, a little bit more finely tuned than this, because this is a streamer putting this together. The coders at Blizzard can actually probably do more because they don't have to work in the same constraints that somebody working on the workshop does.
Right.
But it's just one of those things where we talked about how the community can come up with great ideas and show them, and then Blizzard can take those, make them a little bit more refined, and implement them into the game. And I think this is like the prime example of it. Mm-hmm. So hopefully they put it in soon. I watched the video on this. I really liked it. The focus target one was one I didn't think I wanted until I saw it. Like hadn't crossed my mind to have that. So yeah, for them to do that instead of screaming monkey, 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 you can just ping the monkey.
That's far less exciting though.
Yes. But I don't care. If I'm playing with somebody and they're screaming monkey, 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 I hit P, leave team chat.
I feel like the only other thing that I would really want is maybe to ping an enemy that is low health.
Yeah, I think that's a slippery slope. Because if you start being able to ping people with low health, then you'll be able to start pinging people. Then people will be asking, like, okay, let me ping people who are anti-grenade. Mm-hmm. Or, ping people that are hacked. Or ping, like, I think the pinging system could get a little bit too far if Blizzard lets it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they could. I wouldn't be upset if they did it, but then you'd have to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, so it's really just a matter of trying to balance the potential amount of spam that you could get at that point. But speaking of the workshop, there was another one that I've been keeping a close eye on, as, you know, this has been a character that I'm trying to be semi-competent at. Keyword trying. I'm not there. But there is a new tool that was put up by Darky Pakey, and it's an Ana grenade tool that allows players to learn where they need to throw grenades in order to hit like specific target locations. So you know, this is a way to really start to practice throwing projectiles and trying to hit whatever target. And what's great about this is it has like a wall warning, like kind of built in, so it lets you know whether or not your projectile is going to hit like any sort of barrier before it actually reaches the target. Now, you know, in the Overwatch League, you see it quite a bit, like on I think King's Row is probably like the primary one, where like you throw it towards the spawn, same with like Route 66, and you know, if it lands, you know, you get a quick boost of alt charge. However much percentage it is, I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a really good tool. And you know, that particular part of Ana's toolkit has always been something I've struggled with, because I don't really know like all of the spots that I can like throw something over a building, or know how to find like the perfect arc in order to land it over like a ledge or things like that. So I'm going to be paying close attention to this one as it develops, and hopefully, you know, it leads to some situations where I'll get a really early nano boost, which can turn, you know, some of those earlier fights when we are playing competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this. Now, for people in where we're at, it's not going to be as useful, I don't think. Just because you can practice it all you want, but it's not like you... Where we play, teams don't always set up in kind of the same similar locations. Mm-hmm. They wherever the heck they feel like. It's kind of what it is. Where once you get higher, I think a great example of this is, I want to say it was it Paris on Hanamura that launched like the perfect grenade over the walls and landed directly on the bunker comp.
Right.
And that you can practice those because you know where the teams generally are going to be setting up. And you can be like, okay, if I'm here, this is where I have to throw it to land it perfectly, and so on and so forth. I think it's a great tool. I'm definitely going to try it out because I do play a decent amount of Ana. And you'll be able to get a better understanding of it doing this, but I don't think you're going to be able to use it as well as it might be intended for, just in the spur of the moment. Because, like I said, the teams are fluctuating so much. But you are right when you said it could give you some good early alt charge, because no matter where people set up, most of the time they all come through the same point. So you can get that first early grenade and be like, okay, I got all this alt charge just from that, and go from there, and it could give you a leg up. So I like it. I'll definitely be using it, and hopefully we see more Overwatch practice. Mm-hmm. Things like this for more heroes.
Yeah, there's even been like target drills too that have been popping up. But with this one in particular, though, it doesn't just work for Ana, because it does work with other projectiles. So like you can do one with Zarya when you have, you know, your alt percentage at 100% all the time, so you can practice placing Graviton surges and things like that as well. But you know, primarily for me, I'm gonna be using it for grenade placements. But you know, I just love seeing kind of like different practice ranges kind of evolving over time, and I'm just waiting for someone to put together like a crash course, or like some sort of field where, you know, there's multiple like different target practices that you can do. It's kind of like a different style of the practice range. But you know, these have been so helpful, and hopefully more people are going to be checking out things that are either more practice-based or more mechanic-based here in the near future with the workshop. But again, you know, we do have the workshop spreadsheet that has a bunch of the different import codes that we've been posting in our show notes every week. I will plan on probably adding like a workshop specific area for our Discord server where we'll just, leave that pinned and then people can post, whatever cool new things that people are adding. But, really the workshop over time continues to expand, it continues to grow. And while we don't know when exactly it is going to hit live, because that did not hit live today, I feel like the overall community at this point, at least with my expectations for it, have like far exceeded like what I had expected. And it's still really early on, as we mentioned here in the last week, and we've already seen like some really crazy stuff. I think my most recent favorite one was the Diva Space Battle. I don't know if you've seen this one where you're all in the mechs and like you can see like the star field basically like in the background and you're just shooting other divas, which is a fun one.
I think my favorite is Torbjorn. Instead of throwing out turret, throws out Bastion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, well that's the scariest thing of all time. You have Torbjorn and Bastion.
Mm-hmm. So, needless to say, any sort of community game nights are going to get a whole lot more interesting in the near future, just due to the amount of shenanigans that we can, put forth with the workshop. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that the community have been talking about in this week's hot community topic. So, first up, we got a pair of streaks that have been happening in the Overwatch League, both ongoing, both very impressive. For, maybe similar reasons, but also different because they're two completely distinct records. So, first up, taking a look at the San Francisco Shock. They completed a golden stage, so not only did they finish 7-0 in stage 2, they did not drop or draw a single map, going 28-0-0. Now, that is a record that has never been done before, and they're going to look to carry that momentum into the stage playoffs, where they hope to redeem themselves after coming up a little bit short in the Stage 1 finals. But looking at the stage that they had, they swept the LA Valiant, they defeated the Guangzhou Charge on 2 occasions, they defeated Toronto Defiant, Hangzhou Spark, Philadelphia Fusion, and the Shanghai Dragons. Now, looking at that, only 2 of those are playoff teams this current stage, and Fusion, you may have expected maybe a little bit more of a fight, but it was really the Dragons out of that lot that looked to give the Shock the toughest test to date. And despite it being a 4-0 series, there were a lot of times where the Shock had to kind of like clutch things out in order to secure that 4-0. But I want to kind of get your thoughts on basically how the Shock have kind of gone from this team that never quite reached their potential in Season 1 to, suddenly kind of just being thrusted into being a top 2 team in the Overwatch League.
Well, what the Shock did is, and we took too much advantage of it last year because they built for the future from the get Season 1. When you're talking Super, Sinatra, that though they were picked up and signed knowing they wouldn't come through till halfway through the year, and that was vital for them. But then it's also their scout. Like everyone talks about, like Fusion University being able to scout all these best players. I think the Shock are actually better at it because they were able to go out and get people like Violet. Now Violet, it wasn't like, oh my god, out of nowhere, but they were able to get their weaknesses and sign the players for it. So they got Violet. They signed Moth. Moth was a late pickup last year as well. And it was kind of like not unheralded, but you're just like, okay, they signed Moth. Like, I wonder if he'll play type of thing. And then they were able to scout and get Rascal, who has been on numerous teams and found his place with them. And it's not like they are short there. They still have, Architect on the team. Well, they traded away Sleepy. And then, they have Choyobin on the off tank. These are all people that their scouting team found separate of each other and put together to make a great team. And the GOATS meta really works for them because of the high skill of their players. Because when the season started, we were not talking about them being a dominant GOATS team. We were talking about them, if it's a DPS team meta, they will be strong because they have so many good DPS. And now it's like, okay, now they're still good DPS team, but then they're a scary GOATS team. So it's just everyone's kind of stepped up their game on that team. I don't think this is one of those records where I don't think it's going to be broken. Just because it is so hard to be, okay, we went 4-0 on every single map.
It's really unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, like, even you look at the Titans, and the Titans and the Shock are 1-2, despite how you rank them. Yeah. Don't think I didn't notice you. The Shock is the number 3 team in your rankings. So.
You sure about that one, Chief?
Or was that Slambo that had?
That wasn't me.
Okay. But I'm still blaming you because you didn't put them 1. They're better than... who gave up a map to the Houston Outlaws?
That's a midpoint.
Yeah, no. They gave up a map to the Houston Outlaws.
Well, technically, everyone gave up a map this stage. Except the Shock, which is going to happen in their quarterfinals.
But you gave it up to the Outlaws, which is just even worse. You get negative points for giving up a map, even more so. Because the Outlaws aren't that bad.
The differential remains the same.
In my mind, it's worse.
But that's not how we determine the stand-ins or anything, so...
In my mind, they do. But it's we're not gonna like, Titans are the only other team right now that could do it. I think New York is. I wouldn't say New York is overrated, but they're not as dominant as once people thought, because there are dominant teams in the league outside of them. The Spitfire, I don't think, can pull it off. It would be the Titans or the Shock. And the Titans won't pull it off because, well, Bumper. Bumper's good for at least 2 map losses a stage. On his own.
It's more just their 4th map approach is really what does it. Because they do tend to, like... At this point, regardless of how the Shock and the Titans do, like, they're not really playing to win every single map all the time. Because they don't have to, because they have such a buffer over literally every other team in the league, where when it comes to a Met 4, when it is going to be a throwaway map, it's not a map that's necessarily going to make or break them, so to speak, in regards to being a top seed in a stage playoff or even towards the end of the season playoffs.
Yeah, and when you say that, like, I don't think a lot of people realize how drastic the map differential is. So it's like, for the first 2 stages so far in the season, the Titans have a plus 40 differential, New York has plus 30, Shock have plus 33, and then it's the Spitfire at plus 12. Like, massive drop off after that. And the Shock actually is a little bit more impressive because their stage 1 was insanely hard.
Right.
They did lose to the Titans in stage 1. They just had a rough go of it. So yeah, it's an amazing feat. The Shock are one of my favorite teams to watch in the Overwatch League, and this is part of it because everything's going to be interesting. And when they played the Dragons this week, we'll get more into like some of the matches from this week, but some of the stuff they pulled off in that map was insane. Like, stuff that I never thought I'd see. Like, one thing in particular that I'm going to bring up when we start talking about this past week's matches.
Yeah, and with the Titans, too, like, they have been on a streak of their own because they have not lost a single game since entering the Overwatch League. So, including the Stage 1 playoffs, the Vancouver Titans have won 17 straight games, which is an Overwatch League record in their own right. One of many Overwatch League records that this team has, because, you know, they are the speedrunners of the Overwatch League. You know, Shock definitely played their part in that this week, too, which I know is something you're definitely going to touch up on in a little bit. But, you know, prior to this, Boston Uprising was the team that had the longest win streak, and that was after, you know, they had kind of like their perfect state, well, perfect in the sense that they finished undefeated, not necessarily, you know, a golden stage, but they had a 14-match win streak, and, you know, Titans already +3 above that. And when you look at the teams that the Titans have beaten, they've already beaten 13 of the 19 other teams in the Overwatch League. Now, one of those teams is not New York. We've not had the draw in the playoffs as of yet. I can't remember if that match was going to be in Stage 3 or Stage 4. I just remember it was in the second half. But, you know, that's definitely going to be an interesting one, as is a potential match with London Spitfire down the road as well. I would say, like, those are probably, like, the two most notable teams that the Titans haven't faced as of yet to crush. But, you know, that is going to change in due time. But, you know, it's so funny just looking back at Power Rankings videos and seeing the comments of, like, why are you guys overrating the Titans, you know? It's just like, it's not that we overrated them, it's a fact that people kind of have this mindset that an already established team at that tier 2 level, for whatever reason, they don't feel like they can find success on the bigger stage. And the Titans have just decimated so many teams this year.
Well, the reason people think that is because season 1, predetermined teams, like pre-made teams beforehand, sucked.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. I mean, you look at one of the most prolific teams coming in was Envious. A.k.a. the Dallas Fuel. How'd the Dallas Fuel do?
Dumpster.
Hey, that awesome Rogue team. How'd they do in Florida?
Well, that's Misfits.
Sorry, Misfits, not Rogue. I keep thinking of Rogue.
Right region, wrong team.
Hey, they made that massive trade before OWL where they traded like 4 players for 4 players. So that's where I got confused. But yeah, like, and I think people were a little justified because honestly, it had gone so badly. Now, Runaway is a different scenario because they played in the same format as a team together. You know, it was a little different. Now, I wouldn't say I was down at them on them at the beginning of the year. I just had the Spark rated, you know, I think 4th instead of Titans 4th, and then I had the Titans 5th. So, like, I just had them flip-flopped out of spite. And, you know, so they're really good. I'm interested to see what happens in a non-GOATS meta. Because, like, obviously they're the strongest GOATS team up. Like, them and the Shock, there's a reason them and the Shock are the 2 best teams right now. And it's because of the 2 best GOATS teams, in my mind. And it will be interesting to see what each do. Like, if this rumored 2-2-2 is forced upon us, or something like that, and how the team adapts. So, yeah, it will be interesting. And I looked it up. The Titans don't play New York until the last game of the season.
Of course.
You know who else they play that week?
Is it London?
San Francisco Shock.
Oh, I was hoping it was going to be London, because those are the 2 matches I'm most looking forward to, outside of, you know, matches we haven't already seen.
Yeah,
that's probably the roughest week of any team in the Overwatch League. Also,
and it's Kit Kat rivalry weekend, because that matters.
So, you know, I'll save that for later when we talk about the Justice, because that's going to tie in perfectly. But whatever. So outside of that, I do want to bring up that our podcast network has partnered with another community out there that is running a community league, that being the Omega LOL W community. So, you know, engaging with other communities has always been something that we've strived to do, and, you know, we partnered with them, and, you know, we're going to do a little bit of cross-promotion. So this league is featuring 2 different divisions, both having 6 teams. And all of that was done through free agent drafting. Now, you have the team owners that are able to kind of like trade away players and even future draft picks, going into that next season. And they're doing basically like 5-week seasons before entering like kind of like their playoff situation, where you have the top 4 teams from each side entering the playoffs. But what's interesting about their take on the league is all of these teams that are coming in have a skill rating cap of 17,600. So, like, let's say you go out and get, like, a couple of 4K players. Well, whatever SR you have left over, you have to divvy up between your other roster members. So it's trying to create more of a balanced situation where you're going to get a healthier mix of not only skill ratings, but it's also going to elevate, the play and growth of some of these people that are a little bit lower on the SR area. But this league is running matches Monday through Wednesday, so that kind of coincides when we're recording mostly. But they do start at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, with 2 matches per week once the season gets underway, which actually starts on Monday, May 13th. Now, if you're interested in signing up, maybe getting picked up as a free agent, be sure to check out their Discord server, and you can find a link to that in our show notes. But be sure to follow them on Twitch at twitch.tv/OmegaLolW community. And, who knows, maybe we'll do some other stuff with them outside of cross-promotion. But, if you tune in at all, you'll probably, hear some familiar voices at some point, or, some familiar names. So, looking forward to it. And I do want to point out, Ed, there is a Chicago team listed. That was the first thing I checked.
All right, I'm already all for yeah, I'm all for this. I think it's going to be great. I'm definitely going to tune in. And just it's interesting to have something like this where it's different than what people are used to.
Mm-hmm.
And they're reaching out and they're trying to work with the community. If they ever need 2 people to cast a match, I think they should come to me and you, because we will turn that match into 4 hours long somehow.
I think their tentative schedule is like an hour for a 4-map series.
Yeah, no. I'd extend that. I'd be worse than the Overwatch League at getting stuff done on time. Like, I'd pause the game so I could finish talking.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. They're a growing community, and anything we can do to help out the community grow,
mm-hmm.
And get more competitive Overwatch out there is best. So, go check them out, and like Tom said, we'll have all this stuff in the show notes.
And not only that, but, I have been, browsing their Discord server, and I do know some of the players do listen to this particular podcast. So that definitely helps. So kudos to those players out there that have been tuning in to us. But moving on, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the competitive scene as we go inside the Path to Pro and the Overwatch League. Now, quick note, I do not have this in the show notes, but I feel like it still is worth mentioning. We talked about the Shock earlier. Well, it just so happens that the Shock decided to completely gut their academy team in NRG Esports, which has kind of left everyone kind of scratching their heads. What the heck is going on? We do know, like, there's been a lot of rumors about, like, maybe every Overwatch League team needing to field an academy team, which has kind of been dispelled in a couple of different places. But it was just one of those moments where I was like, wait, what? Like, I had to double take to make sure, like, that was a legit tweet sent out from NRG Esports. But it's important to know that with NRG, despite the meme team status of yesteryears past, they've had a little bit better performances as the seasons have progressed. But at the end of the day, they were still hovering around, like, a 50% win team. But it seems like they're going to pay more attention to scouting for their main roster so they could have players working underneath Krusty. But all of their current players that are on contract are looking for new homes. And, hopefully they'll be able to find a new spot, but it's just one of those things that's, like, we never see that happen. Like, there's been times where, like, maybe we see, like, 3 players leaving a team in a week, but it's never, like, just an organization completely gutting their roster the way that NRG did today.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising because I think everyone was almost on board that, they were going to do not forced, but require all Overwatch League teams to field the contenders team. Because honestly, it makes sense for them to force them to do it. And even if they didn't force them, it makes sense for an Overwatch League team to have a contenders team, to have that minor league system, and so on and so forth. But I guess it makes sense from... No, it doesn't make sense. It like I want to justify this side of the NRG or the Shock, but
like, is it just cost-cutting measures? Like, that's the only possible thing that makes sense to me. But outside of that, like, I don't get it.
I don't think it's cost-cutting measures, because if it was, they wouldn't have stated a specific reason why that they were doing it. That was something like, we want to get more of these players under Krusty's coaching. Now, I know they have some spots open now because they've gotten rid of some people. 2 people. And I can't remember if they had any openings before they got rid of the 2. They may have 3 openings right now. And so maybe they do sign 3 people and, put them on the bench and teach them and build them up that way. I don't know, but it sucks for the players that were on the team, because you think of, like, all right, teams like Invited, or Second Generation, Square One, Phase 2, Meta Sky Foxes, those teams, those are the type of organizations that can, like, if you're playing, okay, this organization is gone. You don't think a professional organization that has an Overwatch League team is just going to dissolve. You may not be picked up to be on that team for the next stage or season, but you don't think the organization is just going to disband.
Unless you're operated by Optic.
True, and that's a whole different scenario. But, it's just, it's one of those things where you're probably just blinded, out of left field. More so than just not being picked up by Sky Foxes or whatever. Which is stupid to say, because everyone on Sky Foxes gets picked up by other Overwatch contenders team. But, it sucks. We'll see what they do from here. I don't know. I can't imagine a lot of teams are really happy about this. Or the Overwatch League is happy about this, but there's nothing they can really do. It just means we're going to get more trials teams. Which, I guess is not the worst in the world, because then you get to start to see players you're not used to normally see. You're not introduced to the Sugar Frees of the world. It's been 2 weeks since I brought him up, by the way.
That's a new record.
It is. Well, I was gone 2 weeks ago. So really, it's only been 1 episode. But it's been at least 2 weeks. So, but yeah, there's plus and minuses to all of this, but mainly minuses, and I was a little surprised by it.
Absolutely. So, moving on, we do have some updates with the All-Star Weekend. So, for starters, the All-Star skins are in-game as of right now. That is the Mercy, the Lucio. Last year's All-Star skins, not available, and I know there's been, a little bit of ruckus, about them not being available. I personally don't care, primarily because last year's weren't as good, but I did buy both of this year's skins already, and just as a reminder, you do earn double tokens for the All-Star Weekend. But have you gone out and picked up your All-Star skins as of yet, Ed?
That's a hard pass. I obviously don't get as lucky as you do with, like, these 100 drops.
I've had 1.
Okay, then
season.
Where are you getting these points? Like, I've been watching, I've taken, like, days off.
Oh,
where,
I
like,
have.
Not even Fridays when you go to the movies?
No, I leave my my Twitch stream.
Oh, you sneaky little SOB. I should start doing that.
Yes.
But, I'm not gonna pick them up because I'd rather get 2 Overwatch League skins for the price of that one.
Yeah, they're basically $5 each.
Yeah, and maybe all right. I will get one if during the Overwatch or the All Star game I hit the 100-point jackpots, which I'm assuming is actually 200.
I don't think it is.
I don't
think it's tied to that.
If it's doubled, then the 100 should be doubled.
I'm pretty sure it's just what you accumulate for watching.
I'm sorry, I'm an accountant, and the math works out in my favor.
Well, we'll double check on that, but I'm pretty sure the drop rate, or the actual big token drops, is not multiplied. We'll figure that out, though, but what we do know about the All-Star Game, outside of there being 2 really boss skins, which I already own both of...
They actually are really cool. I will say that. They are super cool, way better than last year's.
And
better.
I look forward to the tank ones for the next year. But we do have the starting lineups for the Overwatch League All-Star Game, so looking at your Atlantic Division All-Stars, we have the DPS duo of Carpe and Pine? Question mark? Pine got in because he was an all-star last year, and that made him eligible. That's the only reason why he made the starting lineup, outside of, popularity vote. The support line, you have the former NYXL duo of Jonak and Arc. And then on the tank line, you have Poco paired with Fusions. Alright, Ed, so I think it's safe to say the Pacific Division has the better teams out there. But how would you grade the level of play from at least the Atlantic Division starters?
I can't argue that much with Poco and Fusions. I mean, maybe you could substitute him, but Fusions has been a very good main tank, and Poco has been a very respectable off tank in that regards. Carpe is just Carpe. He's been playing well on Zarya. When you're talking just DPS, he's still one of the best in the league when he gets to play it. Jonak's getting in on name. He is not that effective.
Yeah, he's definitely had a little bit of drawback, at least in the current meta as a Zenyatta player.
Exactly, because he's just... Some of his flaws in the current meta are definitely sticking out a little more in this meta. So he's still justifiably an all-star. He's just not Jonak from last season. Let's just get that out of the way. He is not Jonak from season 1. He's still good. That is where I'm like, okay, I can see those 3. The next 3, or the next 2, sorry. Pine 100% should not be in the All-Star.
I would say the only exception is if they only play Ilios.
The thing is they play Ilios in the Overwatch League and doesn't play him.
Different meta.
Yeah, but the All-Star Game's going to be on the current meta.
This is true.
So,
I mean, I'm not the one voted him in, so like.
I mean, he purely got in on name alone. Arc did as well, because Arc, before he even got traded to the Justice, was in the starting lineup, one of the top vote getters. He got in on name alone from last year, and that is kind of showing its face in the reserves, which we'll talk about next, about New York and its player base. But yeah, Pine should not be in there. Pine and Arc should not be in there. There's plenty of other players that probably should have gotten in there. Like, I think Nene should have been in there as the other DPS
instead of Pine. Yeah,
instead of Pine. And then it hurts me to say this, but Dogman probably should have been in for Arc. Now I know he's not a main support, but to each their own.
I do quickly want to point out that Ice Jello in Twitch chat said, we've seen more of the casters than we have of Pine, which is 100% accurate.
We've heard more Barney songs in Overwatch League streams than we've seen Pine.
That is also accurate. Don't cross the streams, guys. But anyways, looking over at their counterparts from the Pacific Division, we got a little bit of shenanigans going on, a little bit of tomfoolery with some of the voting, which is pretty obvious when I list off who made the start-in roster here. So on the TPS line, we have Jinmu and Fleta, with the support line of Yveltal and Ryu Jaehan, with a tank duo, a double main tank duo, mind you, of Guxue and Amain. Now, looking at both of the starting lineups, you have half of these players returning from the starting lineup from, the last season, so that includes Pine, Carpe, Jonak, Arc, Fleta, Ryu Jaehan, and, the majority of these players are Korean. You have a couple of EU players, a little bit more Chinese players, just due to the popular vote in China. But, I have to say, looking at this, we didn't really see any sort of fluctuation with the Pacific Division leaders since the voting opened up, and I cannot say that I'm surprised by that, just due to how popular, the Chengdu Hunters are, even outside of China at this point. So to see them hold it down like half of the starting lineup, while I may not necessarily agree with, probably at least you could definitely make a strong case for Jinmu and Amain. I don't know if you could really make the case for Yveltal, but I don't think they should have half of the starting roster on the Pacific Division All-Star team.
Yeah, I mean, Yveltal should not be in there. Plain and simple. You can make the case for Jinmu, and we've made it previously. Well, he's the only one playing DPS. Actually playing DPS when voting first started. Because the Hunters just never did anything but play DPS. And Amain is just one of those. He's one of the most lovable characters, and he's like Mickey, really. People just love him. Love that he just is refusing to give in to anything and play anything but, Hammond. Jaehong. At first, I was like, maybe Jaehong shouldn't be in there, but he has definitely earned himself a starting spot with his play in Stage 2. Guxue, I don't have a problem with Guxue, just because he has really stepped it up in Stage 2 with his Winston. Now, there are much more notable tanks that should be in there.
Michelle.
I'm going to go Bumper. Chanu.
That's another options. I would say those are definitely the top 3 choices.
Exactly. I'm not going to say Guxue is a complete bad pick, because I think he should have been on the team as a reserve at least. So I'm not mad with that. Fleta is an interesting choice, because Fleta in Stage 1 probably was deserving of an all-star spot. And then he got benched. And out of nowhere, he got benched, really. Fits. And I think the momentum of people voting for him on name alone kept him in this. So that's unfortunate that he's still in it, but he's also riding the Pine. The thing is the three highest ranked teams in the Overwatch League do not have one starting player. No one from the Titans, no one from the Shock, no one from the Spitfire. It's people starting in the All-Star game. Whew, that's brutal. But it's an All-Star game. It's like that literally every sport. But every sport, the All-Star games are very skewed, because the majority of it is fan favorite voting. And I talked about this, I think, last night on OWL by the Numbers. How the China thing is very people don't realize it. If you look at the NBA when Yao Ming was in there and he played for the Houston Rockets, even when he sat out a year, he got injured and he was out for the year. He was the number one vote getter for the All-Star game, and he didn't play. He couldn't even play. And then his teammate Tracy McGrady, who was a phenomenal player, just because he was Yao Ming's teammate, everyone in China voted for him as well. So like, it's the China vote matters. It's like China has a very large population.
Strange.
I don't know. It may be confusing with the flat Earth that we live on. It's hard to tell if China has a lot of people. So I don't know. It'll be interesting, but this is all for shits and giggles. Really, like they're all just gonna have fun.
Are you saying no one is going to take this seriously? Outside of the talent takedown?
Which I am not a fan of. But, there's no way they're playing GOATs. And when we get to the reserves, I'll talk about this. Let's get to the reserves, and then I'll mention something.
Well, before we get to the reserves, I do want to point out that we do know the coaches for each side. The Atlantic has the NYXL head coach, Pavane. And then for the Pacific, you had the Vancouver Titans head coach, Pagian, who was also formerly Fusion University, after, Aero had kind of left the team and moved on for greener pastures in the Overwatch League. So two very respectable head coaches on both sides. I can't really say I'm surprised with either choice. Two of the winningest teams out of the respective divisions. But we do know the other 24 players that have been voted for the All-Star game, that being the reserve. So you have 12 members for each side, and these were voted by Overwatch League staff members, the coaches, and the players themselves. So looking at the Atlantic All-Star team, joining that roster, you have 4 players from the New York Excelsior, you have 3 players from London Spitfire, and then a player from Paris Eternal, Florida Mayhem, Atlanta Reign, Toronto Defiant, and Houston Outlaws. So looking at the lot, you have Mono, Meko, Animo, and Nene, Gesture, Prophet, and Fury. Then you have Cruz, Saya Player, Dogman, Neko, and Dante to round out the Atlantic All-Stars. So, I have to say, I'm not surprised. So here's all the Spitfire and NYXL players. NYXL ended up having 6 players out of the 18 for their team. Just 1/3 of your team, just all NYXL. It's almost reminiscent of the World Cup. Strange. Some things truly never do change. And that includes, NYXL just not winning in the playoffs.
Oof. Oh, too soon? Oh, wait, it's always too soon, because we don't win in the playoffs.
Spoiler, because obviously I didn't say Soon's name. He's not in the All-Star game.
Now, all right, so we went over the Atlantic, and the entire New York Excelsior team, except for Libero.
Mm-hmm.
How awkward is that? Your own coach picked the entire team except you. Feels bad, man.
Yeah.
On this squad, are there, for the Atlantic, is there anyone that you surprised didn't get in?
Well, I'll say who I'm most surprised made it in. That would be Dante.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think this year they made it where you had to have one representative from each team, or did they change that?
Washington Justice does not have a representative.
Okay, so they changed it at one point, because I know they were talking about that.
And they should change it to that.
Right.
You should have at least one person from each team.
Okay, well, regardless, out of the lot, Dante was the one that really surprised me that actually made it in. And I say that as someone that really enjoys seeing Dante play. I enjoyed seeing him play a lot more last season. This season, obviously, he's had a little bit of regression. Being on the Houston Outlaws, who are
real bad.
Honestly,
bad.
honestly, if you don't have him ranked 18th or lower, you're probably doing it wrong. And I'm pretty sure a lot of us had him 20th this
Yep.
week in our power ranking. It's been a rough go for Houston, despite them kind of shuffling things around, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. At the end of the day, really nothing has been working. And part of that has been the experimentation being done by the Outlaws, with Dante in particular, where they've tried to run the Sombra Goats, which has not been impressive, and part of that is due to the fact that they haven't always run Zarya in the Sombra Goats. The other part of it, too, is, like, they've tried to run Dante on the Diva role as well, and he hasn't really been a standout performer on that role either. So for me, he's always kind of been like in a weird spot. He's better than what you see from him, but he can only do so much in the environment that he is in, and I would say, like, there are just more deserving players out there from the Atlantic Division that could have made it. Libero obviously being one of those choices. And I'm surprised Bedosian from the Spitfire didn't make it either. That was probably the biggest glaring person not to make the cut for me.
Yeah, no, Bedosian was probably one of the biggest ones. I think the other one for me was Aim God from the Uprising. That was one that I was like,
right.
I'm surprised he didn't make it. I do think that they should make, like I said, at least one player from each team making the All-Star game.
Right.
Oh, wait, no, the Justice do have somebody now.
It's Arc.
I completely spaced on Arc. I kept thinking
so
he was
maybe
the
I
NYXL.
was right. Maybe it is one representative.
Maybe you were right. So, but
that,
yeah, no.
that would explain some of these picks, potentially.
Oh, 100%. So, all right, I get that now. So, this was very New York Spitfire eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and then you want to go over the Pacific?
All right, yeah, I'll go over who you have joining the Pacific Division All-Star team. So, looking at the breakdown, we have 3 San Francisco Shock players. We have 4 players from the Vancouver Titans, and then we have a representative from the LA Gladiators, Dallas Fuel, Guangzhou Charge, Shanghai Dragons, and the Los Angeles Valiant. So, starting from the top, we have Violet, Super, and Sinatra. Representing the Shock, we have Slime, Huxel, Twilight, and Bumper from the Vancouver Titans. And then, as the individual representatives, we have Decay, OGE, Shu, Diem, and Space. Now, I have to say, like, here's all the top teams, basically. You know, you have the Shock Titans. Gladiators only having one representative was pretty interesting to me. I would say, like, probably the most glaring person missing from this is, without a doubt, Surefour, who, you know, even if you factor in the fact that he hasn't really been playing all the time, by name recognition alone, he's still one of the most popular players in the league and still has one of the top selling jerseys in the Overwatch League. So to see him not being in the All-Star game is going to be really weird, and it puts him in a spot where he's not actually going to be able to defend his 1v1 Widowmaker title in the All-Star game this week. So we're going to have a new champion in that regard, but outside of that, you know, I'm not surprised with any of the picks from the Titans. So Min-Soo is probably another glaring exception, but Ed, I was talking about, like, the 2 major exceptions that I noticed. One being So Min-Soo from the Titans, who has been one of the best Zarya players in the league. The other one being Surefour, just based solely off of name recognition.
I mean, So Min-Soo, I can see. It's just the simple fact that they had 4 other Vancouver Titans players.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, you can tell who the coaches are. You can tell the Titans coaches and the Newark Excelsior coaches are the coaches. Like, because they took everyone. Yeah, I could see Surefour, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm a fan of that.
I want to see him at least be brought in for the Widowmaker tournament so he can defend the crown.
Yeah, okay. That I can see. But, I mean, if you're going to be doing that, then you have to bring Linkser in too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I think this was a very more straightforward backup team. I really like. I'm glad they brought you in. I did like DM from the Dragons, but I would have also liked Ding.
All I care is we get Carpe versus DM. Let's make it happen.
Mm-hmm. God, I'm just trying to think of who else they could have maybe have brought in.
Shaz.
Maybe Shaz, AKM even.
Mm-hmm.
Could have probably be brought in. Let's see here. I'm just trying to think of what other. I don't think any of the other Soul players deserve to be in this because they're either too new onto the team or they're benched.
Mm-hmm.
Don't need any more hunters. Godsby could have probably be brought in. He's been a standout player for the Spark. But the fact that Decay made it, game over. Decay. That will be a lot of fun. Now, did you see? And this is something I did noticed. Did you see they came out what the maps are going to be for the All-Star game?
I didn't look, no.
Okay, so, and it's wonky as hell. So I'm going to read the first map off. It's going to be called Sibling Rivalry. It's
that stuff I know.
Okay, so
the Hanzo
6v6.
Genji stuff, and then the
3 Genjis
support.
versus 3 Hanzos per team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have map 2 is Healers Never Die. It's 6v6. Supports only.
1 hero limit.
1 hero limit. And then map 3 is Terrible Damage. And that's 6v6 DPS only. 1 hero limit.
So,
and then
Hunters win.
Yes. Map 4, Keeping the Pace. 6v6 McCree only. That should be a fun one.
Okay, we'll see if Pine can carry.
Right?
The
and then I love how they have a tiebreaker map. Tanks, but no tanks. 6v6, no tanks, 1 hero limit. So at least they're making each match fun. And there's going to be actually some strategy behind when you use players. I mean, the starting lineup, wouldn't they have to be in map 1, though? Like, if they were voted starters...
That's technically how that works.
So...
You start at map 1, the last I checked.
So so Fusion is going to be on a Genji? I don't know how this is going to work.
We've seen stranger things. Bumper is throwing out anything out there, whether, it's like Hanzo, we've seen Pharah. The community's voting on, what they want to see him on next. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be, hammer-only Torb. You don't know. But one thing is for certain, at the end of the day, it may take him some time, but Bumper will find that 1 kill. It may not be the kill that necessarily opens it up for the Titans or, the all-star team in this situation, but it will happen.
He has to play in the 6v6 damage. Like, you have to just put him in for that.
We can only hope.
And then, yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Massive success last year. Like, it was just massive. Although, one of the best Widowmakers in the league is not going to be there for it.
Mm-hmm.
Happy.
Well, yeah, a couple of them are. Because
I think Happy is probably the best Widowmaker right now.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we don't really have too much to go on so far this season, but based on the duel list that we have seen so far this stage, Happy has definitely been the standout in that regard.
Yeah. So we don't have that. The talent takedown, because it's only going to be it's going to be 3 all-stars and 3 talent versus 3 all-stars and 3 talent. So it will be interesting to see who gets into that, and
they should just do Titans versus NYXL there.
And then who's going to be using a controller instead of a keyboard?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it will be fun. Like, I can just imagine Zoe playing with Bumper and her being like, "No, I got Reinhardt." Be like, all right, fair enough. I'm going with Torbjorn Happer.
Yeah, we'll see who can feed less between the two.
Right? I'm looking forward to it. I like the change too. Like I like the change that they made to put in mid-season,
Hmm.
so people can actually care about it instead of it being an afterthought.
Absolutely.
It's also on my birthday.
I mean, that's a plus for you.
Yeah, like my birthday is May 16th, so yeah, starts on May 16th. I expect at least 100 to 200 Blizzard tokens from Blizzard on this. Minimum.
Well, let's just hope they don't go missing like some other things.
Weird. Nice segue. You're getting real good at these.
Jeez. Well, anyways, this next thing that we're gonna talk about, I was like, okay, cool, they're making a sign-in ahead of the stage playoffs, and then I was like, wait, it's not actually going to mean anything for the stage playoffs. So Dallas Fuel went out and they picked up Trill from their NA Contenders roster. That, of course, being Team Envy. And, Trill is a player that has had a 10-year, including a pretty extensive run, competed in the Oceanic region. He's been on the Australia World Cup team, both in 2017 and 2018. Back then, he was on Blink Esports. He would go on to join Team Envy towards the end of last year, and we just saw Envy go on to secure a first-place spot in the 2019 Contenders North America West Season 1. So they're going to be part of the Showdown, which we're not done with all of the playoffs yet, so like once all of the teams are locked down, we'll definitely be doing a more deep dive into all the champions that are advanced into that LAN tournament for Contenders, which I know you and I are greatly looking forward to because it's inter-regional competition like we've really never seen before at that level. But basically, Envy went out, they took first, they defeated Atlanta Academy, and Trill right now is currently in the process of moving to LA, and due to that, he will not be joining the Dallas Fuel until the start of Stage 3. Now that being said, this is a main tank player who will serve backup for OGE, and, this seems to be a common practice when it comes to having a very confident backup tank. We see it a lot in sports as well, whether it is like a veteran, pro player kind of like being on the bench. Maybe he's, trying to take like the young gun underneath his wing, things like that. But Trill is competent. I wouldn't say like OGE is in any risk of getting traded or anything like that. But it's always nice to see movements from within the house from these organizations when it comes to the Academy team moving on to, that respective team's main roster.
Yeah, no, this is a great move for Dallas because Trill was definitely the best main tanks in NA contender. Now, I don't think he's actually going to be able to compete in the Showdown because he is not a two-way player. He just got signed to the roster. So he will not be able to compete with them, which definitely hurts their chances to do well in it. Because, I mean, when you lose your main tank, it leads me to believe a team tried to sign Trill. Another team. And Dallas, the only way they could keep him is they signed him to a full-on contract. Because if that wasn't the case, they could have easily just signed him to a two-way contract. And he still would have been able to play in Contenders, done the big tournaments, and then been the backup on the main roster. Kind of like Panker is.
Right.
And they could have done that, but the only way they probably could have done that is if nobody else tried to sign him. So they had to make him a full-fledged person on the roster because another team was trying to swoop in and sign him. That is my feeling on it because it just makes sense. Like from a business perspective, it's not like Contenders when you win. It's not like it's no money. I mean, they won $80,000 for winning NA West. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Trill, I think, should be a starting main tank because there are a lot of really bad starting main tanks in the league right now,
Mhm.
and he is definitely not one of them. And I just want to hear, the casters when Reinhardt shatters saying the thunder from down under every time he uses his ultimate.
I wonder if Uber is going to put in a request to only cover Dallas Fuel matches from this point on.
Well, Trill would have to play.
Well, that is also true, but it's just the thought of
Now,
representing.
You say OGE's job is safe. Is it? Like, I'm not saying OGE is doing bad. I'm not saying that at all, even remotely. Like, OGE has been standout. He's an all-star. But if you have Trill coming in, and he is a very capable tank, very capable, and should be starting somewhere, and you can get crazy value for OGE, trading him possibly elsewhere.
I don't know. I feel like
I know it's completely out there.
I feel like Note compliments OGE too much to really warrant seeking trade opportunities, regardless of what potential net value you could get out of that lot. But yeah, you're right. Like, there are so many like backup main tanks right now that really could be starters for some of these bottom of the barrel teams that have been struggling. Whether it's Washington Justice being a primary one, even Florida. Who, they finish 0-7 again despite running the all-Korean roster, and while they've looked better, the tank line has definitely been kind of like the most glaring issue with that team, and it's pretty obvious as we've seen them progress throughout this season.
The Valiant, too. I mean, Fate has not really done much.
Right.
There are a lot of teams that use a main tank, so Dallas is in a pretty good spot right now to having flexibility with the main tank role.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of, some other exciting things, one tank you're not going to be seeing, at least in the grand finals, more than likely, it's probably going to be, Fraggy or Sato. I mean, we're going to be in Philly for the grand finals. Philadelphia, probably not going to be there. They kind of hit a little bit of a rough patch in Stage 2, despite the increase of Winston play. So, we've had a little bit of fall off there, but we're going to be in the city of brotherly love on September 28th at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. And the broadcast for the grand finals will start at 12 p.m. Pacific time, airing both on Twitch and ABC. Now, Philadelphia will be the fourth city to host Overwatch League matches this season, following the footsteps of, obviously, Los Angeles, the home crowd, Dallas, who had the first homestand weekend, and of course, we have the upcoming one in Stage 3, that being in Atlanta. So we do know that tickets for the grand finals will be going on sale on June 7th. But, with the date for this being so close to my Disney World trip, that basically shuts the door unless I miraculously win the giveaway for the grand finals ticket. But, they're keeping it on the East Coast. They're keeping it in a very big sports market. And, here I am. Here we are in the Midwest, still kind of shrugging. Maybe one day.
Ho hum. Midwest, they hate us. No, this is actually really cool. I think CG Entrenchment said in chat, hopefully the stage is behind bulletproof glass because Philly fans are going to be throwing batteries. You're not wrong.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, they did beat up Santa.
Mm-hmm.
So now, compared to last year when it was at the Barclays Center, this actually is a bigger stadium. Right. I mean, not drastically. I think it's 500 seats. So it's not like, oh my god, they're going into a 70,000 seat arena.
We're gonna sell out 2 seconds later.
Yeah, so not a big deal. Here's where this is gonna be 10 times better than the one in New York. And you're a Midwestern person. You'll get this.
Okay.
Tailgating.
Mm-hmm.
Tailgating is probably the second best thing about any sporting event arguably the best thing about any sporting event. You couldn't do that at the Barclays Center. Like, it's in the city. People walk there. People have to take the subway, stuff like that. Around the Wells Fargo Center, it's just giant parking lots. So you drive there. You bring your grill. You bring your coolers, your chairs, your folding chairs. You have yourself a 4-hour tailgate, and you drink and party it up. That is why this is going to be 10 times better than it was in New York. For that reason alone. Tailgating is vital to sporting. So I wish I could go. I'm actually going to be in DC that weekend. So I mean, I'm going to be in DC for a convention. So I won't be able to be like, I'm going to hop up to Philly. No, I'm going to be there for a convention.
I have to ask, what convention?
Insurance convention?
Oh boy.
For work?
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a work convention.
Which makes it even worse.
True. But it is across the street from an MGM property, so there will be gambling involved. But yeah.
Business expenses.
Business expenses. In a slot machine / blackjack / war table. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully they don't get DJ Khaled.
I guarantee you they won't. There is no possible way.
I think they're going to get a musical act, but I think they're not going to go that route. I think they're going to get like a bigger, like they're going to get some like Imagine Dragons.
So you're saying they're not going to go out to get the county fair BlizzCon headline and train?
Exactly. They're going to go with some sort of, I think. So it should be fun. You know, part of you wants Philadelphia, the Fusion, to actually make it. But then you're like, oh no, they suck. They're not going to make it. But, I mean, it would still be cool if they did.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I feel like as soon as they pick where they're having it, that home team is just cursed to not make it. Happened to New York. It's going to happen to Philadelphia.
Yeah. I mean, you know how you break that curse?
By having it somewhere that they're going to hold a future team.
Exactly. Because if you have no team there, the curse is broken because no team from there could make it because you don't have one yet.
Yeah, there's
Where would
no
be a
like
good city for that.
Chicago.
Weird.
Yeah, strange.
So I don't know. It should be interesting. I will not be able to go, but you know, there's definitely going to be a lot of representation from the community there. I know High Noon basically is guaranteed to go because they're like a fairly short drive.
Must be convenient to be on the East Coast.
Right, you have like 3 teams surrounded and the final.
Oh well, and we have Toronto. You can't even count that.
No, can't even. No.
Feels bad.
I'm farther north than Toronto.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it isn't. But anyways, let's talk a little bit about Stage 2, Week 5, before we do our playoff preview. So Ed, I know there is something that you've been dying to get off of your chest about the Justice, but before you get into that, I will say, the other thing about, the Justice picking up a win to avoid that 0-7 stage is the fact that, Sleepy went out and bought everyone ice cream, and you know what? Justice are going to be playing during the rivalry week, which is going to be sponsored by Kit Kat. So, you can get all sorts of, like, crazy combinations there with the custard, and I'm looking forward to that. But there was something else that was pretty notable about that Justice win that I know you've just been chomping at the bits to talk about, because you can relate when it comes to, maybe some celebrations,
Okay. So, if you didn't know, Kate was the general manager of the Justice. And this was her last game as the general manager because she stepped down. So when the Justice won, she was celebrating and she dislocated her shoulder. Okay, very unfortunate. A lot of people out there probably laughed at it. Like, how do you dislocate your shoulder while celebrating? I have this to say to you. Screw you. In case I feel I've talked about this, but I might not have.
All right. No, you have.
So I have had my own sports celebration-related dislocation. If you've ever played the game Bags, or commonly known as Cornhole, I may or may not have dislocated my knee while playing or celebrating a cornhole victory. After I sank 4 Bags in a row to win. So I Martin Gramatica the hell out of that. And if you don't know who Martin Gramatica is, Google it. He's a kicker for the Buccaneers that had almost like a career-ending injury from celebration. But yes, I feel for you, Kate.
Oh, okay.
Dislocation during celebration is totally acceptable.
Here's where I'm gonna dispel this completely, Ed. Here's the difference. You're always coming in every week on OWL by the numbers, talking about winning. That's all you do. All you do is win.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what?
Yes. And for the Justice, they don't get the wins. Wins are very few and far between. So when they win, they go all out. The fact that, if this is something that you're doing all the time, you're going to have a higher probability of injuring yourself during the celebration as opposed to just one pop-off moment, which probably isn't going to be duplicated in the near future if you're the Justice.
I mean, who knows? Maybe next time the Justice wins, she celebrates him because she is a... So, next win, she could just pop it right out from cheering. You have to really take, into consideration the lingering effects of over-celebration. But I feel for you. Celebration dislocations. We unite.
Celebration dislocation. That would be a good episode title.
If any of our listeners out there, if you have ever dislocated a body part while celebrating,
send us your story.
Send us your story, and I guarantee you I will read it. Guaranteed.
So, outside of that, the Washington Justice, picked up a win. They went 1-6, but there were 2 unfortunate souls that did not pick up a win in Stage 2. One of them being the all-Korean Florida Mayhem. The other one being our favorite punching bag in the Houston Outlaws.
Yeah, I mean, the Florida Mayhem, they went winless. I almost said undefeated.
I was like, what universe are you living in?
Awkward.
Probably an alternate timeline.
The Mayhem this was a transition stage for them. They're gonna do something, I don't want to say drastic, but they're gonna be making changes this offseason.
Well, drastic would be winning a game.
True, but they're gonna get rid of probably or replace 2 to 3 people on their team with different signees, I think. Because you're going to have that long break. They're going to sign people. I think that's a foregone conclusion. Where you can't say that for the Houston Outlaws because of the uncertainty of who's actually going to own the team. Mm-hmm. Like, Houston can't really make the moves right now, in theory, because they're trying to sell the team. They don't want to take any, unnecessary salary. Mayhem don't have that issue. I think they went to an all-Korean roster when they were starting non-Koreans, but didn't pick anybody up. And I think this was just okay, let's get everything settled, see where we're at, and then go from there. Because they actually have 3 pretty decent starters on that team. I mean, you have Hagapen, who's not bad, not great, but not bad. You have Saya player, who's quite good, and then you have BQB, who's pretty good. So I think your DPS lineup is not horrible, and your flex support's not horrible. I think you just need an entire new tank line and a new main support, which thankfully there's a lot out there. So who knows what's going on now? To the Outlaws. RIP. Your team sucks. You have maybe 2 players on your team. No, maybe 3. 3 players on your team that are worth keeping. And that's Dante, Muma, and Linkser. The rest of your team needs to be gone. They won't ever get rid of Jake until Jake decides to step down, just because he's the face of the franchise and one of the faces of the league.
He's a poster boy.
Yeah, he's the poster boy of the league because, I mean, when they were on Good Morning America, they sent Jake and Raucus. And Raucus didn't say a thing, and Jake just talked the whole time.
Well, I mean, Raucus is used to being, like, the afterthought.
Yeah, but let's be real here. Raucus is a bad flex support. He is. I mean, out of Zenyatta's, he's ranked 23rd. That means backup Zenyatta players are doing better than Raucus, who's starting. Let that sink in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Backups are doing better. Like, he is not good. You don't have a consistent off tank. One of your off tanks from stage 1 is now your Zarya player / DPS player, or you put Dante on your DPS line who flexes over to Diva, and then you have Cool Matt, and I don't know what Cool Matt's doing, but he is a backup 100% of the way through and through. You have no idea who's going to be your second DPS player besides you're starting Jake every time because of his shot calling. Not because of his play, because of his shot calling. So your 2 best DPS players are not out in the lineup at the same time in Linkser and Dante. Like those 2 are hands down their best DPS players. Your entire team needs to be gutted from the coaching staff down to the players.
Right.
Like the entire thing. It's a matter of you're 4-24-1 this year. That's bad. Like, that's worse than the Mayhem, worse than the Justice, worse than the Charge. You know, you're a minus 20 map differential, which is 5 maps worse than the Mayhem. And you haven't done a single thing to your team. You need a complete revamp of this team. It just will not happen until they sell the team and you have new owners, because rightfully so, you don't want to take it's business 101. You don't want to take on added expenditure when you're trying to sell the team. It makes it look more lucrative the less money you're in debt, essentially. Mm-hmm. So hopefully they can sell the team in this offseason, because there's a long enough break, and then they can quickly turn around and be like, and you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. All right, we're signing a whole Korean team and just going from there. Like, I don't know. And if Raucus makes Team USA for the World Cup, I 100% am booing Team USA. I will 100% boo Team USA if Raucus is one of the support players.
Well, even if that's the case, he wouldn't have to boo very long.
I wouldn't, because they have Raucus on supports.
I mean, I was speaking more of the fact that they're not going to escape the round of 8, but, you know, that works too. But anyways...
Again, they have Raucus on supports.
Outside of that, you know, we had another, like, really interesting thing that happened. So we had the grudge match between the Atlanta Reign and the New York Excelsior. And the last time these teams went head-to-head, it was the Atlanta Reign getting the upper hand. And we were all kind of just, like... A lot of the community was, like, just spinning the narrative around only New York Excelsior. right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, lo and behold, they have the grudge match. You know, New York Excelsior have a longer duration of time to prepare for Atlanta Reign to try to get that win back. And that did not happen as Atlanta beat New York Excelsior a second time in Stage 2. Now, those 2 losses are New York Excelsior's only losses in the group stages so far in the first half of this season. But those losses meant that NYXL did not finish with a very good seed for the stage playoffs, as they did earn the 5th seed, and they will be going up against the LA Gladiators. Now, Edge, you know, we've seen a lot of movement from Atlanta. Obviously, they've had a lot of shakeups lately, you know, with DeFran retiring. They've kind of like been experimenting with Dogman and Kodak, and a lot of that was just due to the fact that at the time, Daka was benched for whatever reason. And then, you know, they picked up Fried, and he started to come in on that off-tank position, and he was looking serviceable. But now Daka was back in. They've gone back to Dogman on the flex support, and Dogman's really been really a staple of this team, and he's definitely been kind of like the glue to their fantasy perspective. But Baby Bay's still, you know, been pretty hit or miss, but at the end of the day, Atlanta seems to be, you know, just this, you know, mid-table team that is able to pull off an upset against, you know, one of the supposed big 3 teams. And I know as a sports fan, this is something that we do see from time to time, where these really good teams will just find a way to lose to lesser opponents. Whether it's just the fact that they're being overlooked, they're just not putting in the necessary prep time, or what have you. But what do you think it's been that has caused Atlanta to find such success against the New York Excelsior so far this season?
I mean, I think it's more on the Atlanta side. Like you said, sometimes these higher end teams play down too much to the lesser teams. But the reverse, I think, is true in this case. Mm-hmm. I think Atlanta realizes, like, coming into the stage, or to the season, the top dog out there, despite not winning season 1, the top dog was New York Excelsior. Mm-hmm. Coming into season 1, they were the top dog. Everyone had them up at the top. And it's like, all right, how do we make a name for ourselves? We go all out against the New York Excelsior. We pull out all our bag of tricks. We just go to town, and we put our best foot forward against them. And I think that's what Atlanta is doing. I think it was smart. They went back to Daco instead of Ferd. I will not call him FRD, and I will not call him Fried. It's Ferd. You know, I will also be the first to admit, I was wrong about Dogman. Not about him being super annoying, because he is, but he is playing better than I thought. Yes, a lot of people think he's a great personality for the league. Yes and no. A lot of those same people thought XQC was a personality. You know, there's a fine line. But, you know, they really just stepped it up. And I don't know what the problem is with New York. I think they're not their skill is taking them to winning a lot of these bad matchups when they play 3-3, because I don't think their 3-3 is that good. Personally, like, I'm not saying it's bad, but like their 3-3 is better than the average 3-3. Mm-hmm. Because of the overall skill of the players. Yeah, not because they're good at 3-3.
Right. I feel like a lot of it just boils down to the fact that they can't really be as aggressive in the way that they run their 3-3, which has kind of caused them to take kind of like a step back as a team overall. And it's really like kind of like, you know, for the longest time, like the whole narrative has been, you know, in the Overwatch League, there's the big 3 that are in the picture. You have the Shock, the Titans, and the New York Excelsior. And we're already kind of getting to the point now where we're starting to think, well, are NYXL still in that discussion? Just due to the fact that, you know, they still have had issues in the stage playoffs. they have been losing more in the group stages so far. And then you see what the Shock and the Titans are doing, and it, I would say to a degree, that still kind of like skewers your perspective on those two teams in particular, just because, you know, the records that they have been accumulating as the season progresses really surpasses some of the stuff that NYXL did in the first season. But in a situation where NYXL end up losing early in the playoffs, or even just lose it all in the playoffs, I feel like that big three is just going to be completely swept away at that point.
Yeah, I want to go back to when you said they're not about the New York Excelsior. The reason I think that they're not doing great in the 3-3 is honestly their support line.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because yes, their support line is good, and Jonak can pump out damage, but both him and Animo are actually not good at healing. Like Jonak, so on Jonak on this is like 19th in healing for Zenyatta's.
Mm-hmm.
And I get Zenyatta's aren't meant to be healing, but they're not supposed to, like, if you're considered one of the best, you're not supposed to be one of the worst in that category. And Animo on Lucio is like the number 7 Lucio in regards to healing, which isn't bad. It's just like when you have the 7th best healing Lucio and the 18th best healing Zenyatta, your healing overall is lacking.
Mm-hmm. It's so middle of the pack.
It's middle of the pack. It's not considered elite. Even when it gets even worse when Jonak goes to Zenyatta, and not Zenyatta, to Ana,
Mm-hmm.
like, because he pumps out a lot of damage and he gets a lot of final kills and stuff like that, but his actual healing on Ana is pretty atrocious. Like, he's the number 1 ranked Ana until you get to his healing, and he's like 15. Like, it's bad. Like, they're just not healing as much as they need to be, and that's putting an effect on the tanks, because you're really seeing, like, you know, Meko and, you know, seeing them take too much damage and dying quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, a lot of that too is everyone's kind of like Pincering on top of Mono a lot, and that's something that we did see this last week, where they just basically like overload him, and because they do have, you know, kind of a middle of the ground healing overall, they're just not able to keep up with the damage that's being put out from the opposition.
Exactly. I mean, and then you look at, to add on to the healing thing, you look at Libero, who's playing Baguette.
Mm-hmm.
He's the 19th ranked Baguette in healing. So, like, that just kind of adds onto it. So it's one of those things where I'm skeptical on New York because of teams who know their weakness, which right now is their support line. As weird as that sounds, support line when it comes to healing, if you can take advantage of that, you're gonna win. And I think they've shown that. Some teams have shown that, and Atlanta has their in with that. Like, they're like, okay, we know what we're gonna do. It's kind of like at the end of season 1 last year's. Once people realized, if you literally just pressure the hell out of Jonak, you're gonna come out ahead against New York, because they rely so much on Jonak pumping out that damage and doing all that stuff. And if you just concentrate your whole team on taking Jonak down, the rest of the team will crumble. So, I don't know. I'm not shocked by this loss, but I definitely did not pick New York to lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's starting to storm over here. I see a lot of lightning in the background. But let's go ahead and jump into our main discussion, which is going to be our Stage 2 playoff preview. So, looking at the lineup across the board, and, you know, I'm really happy with the quality of matches that we got for these particular playoffs. Probably the best playoff picture that we have had since the Overwatch League began. So looking at the first match, you have the top seed, which is the San Francisco Shock. After, not dropping a single map or drawing anything, they took the top seed. They'll be going up against the 8th seed in the Shanghai Dragons, and it's important to note, the Shock are undefeated against the Dragons all time, 5 wins to 0, and we did see the Shock sweep the Dragons 4-0 in their last meeting, which just so happened to be Stage 2, week number 5. Now, that being said, Ed, I know you mentioned, there were a couple of situations that, definitely kept you on the edge of your seat where there was, a little bit of doubt that, the Shock were going to be able to get another 4-0 because the Dragons did put up a pretty big opposition. So what was it this past week that, gives the Dragons, maybe an inside possibility at pulling out the upset here?
I mean, the outside shot of truly going that far, but is Shanghai the fair play from Diding?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's not how you pronounce it. I just call it Diding because I want to go Diding. It really kind of disrupted. You had a little bit of a DS meta from Shanghai getting played against Shock, and they just didn't adjust as quickly as they needed to. They got overwhelmed when they were on defense by some of the DPS focused comps that the Dragons were playing on offense. Like the prime example of this is Paris map, which I wanted to talk about, but I'll just say this: when they played them, the Shock set the record for the fastest point B take of Paris, and they broke Shanghai Dragon matchup record. Now Shanghai came back and just did almost as well, not quite as well, but almost as well, by just bum rushing them on offense with more DPS focused than what the Shock were expecting. Now, San Francisco Shock came back and broke the record again. So they broke the record for point B take twice in one map. But, that's what the Shanghai needs to rely on. Mm-hmm. They need to go in, not try and do 3-3 against them at all, and just go DPS and go that, randomly do quad DPS. Pull out the Chengdu Hunters. Really try and throw them because you're not going 3v3 against the Shock and winning as the Dragons. It's just not going to happen. That's been proven. They did lose a map. What you have to do is come out with the unique to try and surprise them. So I think that's what they need to do. Even if they do that, at most I see them taking one map.
You're right.
I just don't see how the Shock could.
Yeah, Dragons also kind of do this weird thing where they don't like to run a ton of D.Va. And, the Violet has no problem flexing over to Ana to abuse that with the, bio nade, so I expect to see a ton of that in this series in particular. But at the end of the day, I part of me is like, the Dragons played them so close, but if they're going to rely on the DPS heavy compositions, it's probably going to be 3-1. If they try to just mirror 3-3, this is going to be a sweep for the Shock. But one way or another, the Shock should advance to that next round. So that is Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, so that's tomorrow. And then after that, we will have the number 2 seed, which is the London Spitfire, going up against the 7th seed in the Hangzhou Spark. Now, you might be wondering, well, how the hell does London have the 2nd seed? That's New York's fault. New York lost twice, London got rewarded, they're the 2nd seed, and what a crazy turnaround for the Spitfire after, kind of like a middle-of-the-road, like, Stage 1. Birdreen's back in the lineup, Prophet's still been an absolute monster, and, they have a lot of momentum going into this match with the Spark, who, this is their first playoff berth, one of 2 Chinese teams, in these stage playoffs, which, by the way, Ed, our stage playoff predictions for teams got freaking decimated because of some of the upsets. Yikes. But anyways. So you have London going up against the Spark, and these two teams did play in Stage 1, Week 2, and the Spitfire took that series 3-1. So at the end of the day, Ed, who do you feel like is going to have the edge in this series?
I mean, I'm going to give the edge to the Spitfire, but out of all matchups, this is going to be the one where I think a true upset could have.
Mm-hmm.
Like our 4-5 matchup, I wouldn't consider anyone winning in our 4 matchup that we'll get to an upset, but this one, the Spark could beat the Spitfire. The Spitfire have shown vulnerability, and the Spark have really kind of they've come on hot at the right time.
Right.
Like when they played in the beginning of this stage, Crystal wasn't really like a main force on that team.
Yeah, and they were still figuring out what their lineup was too at the time.
Exactly. So now that they kind of have going to be in there, they're not afraid to just be like, you know what, we're not running 3-3. We're going to run bunker comp. We're going to do this. The chance of an upset by the Spark is probably 30-35%.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say the same.
Yeah, like, you know, somewhere in there where it's not like I'm going to bet on the Spark, but if you're going to bet on any upset, this would be the one I'd choose. Because, I mean, there's so many things that could go wrong for the Spitfire because they are a very hit and miss team on certain days. It's whether Birdring's on top of his game. You know, it depends on what hero gesture is going to be on. Is he going to be playing forced into Reinhardt play? Or is he going to be forced into Winston play, which you prefer Winston play? I think that's going to be one of the most interesting things that the casual fan is not going to care about. But you have probably the 2 best Winston tanks in the league going head-to-head this week. And that should be fun to watch. Like, you know, Jester versus Goochway is going to be a phenomenal thing. Godsby, I swear to God, if you get a Grav eaten by Fury, I'm gonna be so upset.
Is there a world that you live in where you think that's not going to happen, where Godsby's just going to land every Grav he throws at Fury?
I feel that Godsby is going to be so like, I'm staying away from Fury no matter what. When I have Grav, that if I have to grab one person, I will. He'll take the Sinatra approach.
Right.
Sinatra doesn't get his Grav eaten often because a lot of times he'll just be like, all I have to do is take out one person and it's a team win for us. So maybe he goes that route. I don't know. But I'm still going to pick the Spitfire to win this one. But like I said, don't be surprised if the Spark win this. Yeah, I'll be rocking my Spark jersey for that match.
Yeah, we'll see if Fury has eaten enough Gravs and might have a little indigestion. But anyways, so that 4 versus 5 match, right, is gonna be probably the most intriguing one out of the lot. So in the 4th seed we have the LA Gladiators, who will be going up against the 5th seed in the New York Excelsior. So looking at Overwatch League history, the Gladiators are down 1-2 against the New York Excelsior. This is a first meeting between these two teams so far this season. I have to say, Ed, like, this is really the one that is probably going to be pretty split in the pick'ems. You kind of have, like, the thought in your back of your mind about New York, or, like, we've started to see them regress a little bit. They haven't always performed in the playoffs. And for, like, the Gladiators, like, they haven't necessarily had, like, substantial, like, playoff performances, but they've really started to come into their own in Stage 2 after, maybe, like, an average, Stage 1 performance, but, we've seen them shore up the protection on the front line for Roar, which was one of their bigger issues in Stage 1. Decay's been looking pretty good. Shaz has always been in, like, the top 3, top 5 discussion for best flex supports in the league. There's a lot to like about the Gladiators right now, and they're coming up against a New York team that, by all accounts, seems to be fairly vulnerable. Now, regardless of what, odds you would put on this match, it's going to be pretty close one way or another, but do you feel like out of all of the matches in this round of 8, that this one is going to be the one that is most likely to go the distance?
Most likely, yeah, I could be the one going the distance. Now, I really like the player in Decay.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see the Gladiators winning. When you look at it, the Gladiators, they got into the playoffs, which is remarkable over what they did last stage. But if you look at who they actually played this stage, it's kind of bad. Like, all right, so they played Shanghai, fine. Seoul, fine. Then they played the Charge, Valiant, Mayhem, Chengdu in a row. So 4 non-playoff teams.
So they basically had like 3 middle-of-the-pack ones.
Yeah, and then they played the Boston Uprising and won. So, like, they went 3-2 against the Dynasty, and they went 3-1 against Shanghai. I consider the Gladiators more of a 7 to 10 range team instead of a number 4 team overall. But I think they could give New York a run for their money because I think New York is definitely favored. I think it'd be stupid not to have them favored in this. But, Decay really going crazy. And I think the support line for the Gladiators is better than New York. Those, like the support line and Decay, if they really go off, they make it a game. I'm not sold on the Gladiators tank line. I don't mind Roar. It's just he's nothing special. And I don't know. It's going to be close, but I gotta to New York Excelsior. Now, home field advantage does play at least a semi-part in it, which makes it a lot closer. I still think this one goes 3-1 New York. I think New York is just like, you know what? No. We're going to go 3-1 and then go into the next round and get taken out by the Shock.
Yeah, see, this is the one I'm having such a hard time with. I really feel like Friday, this is probably going to be a game time decision for me in which way I end up tipping. Because, there's positives and negatives on both sides. I feel like with New York Excelsior, you have more raw talent on that team. But I feel like the execution in particular hasn't been as impressive from New York. Whereas on the LA Gladiators, there might be a couple more weaknesses on the front line. But I do feel like Void has definitely seen massive improvements compared to what we have seen from him in the past. And really, the DPS situation, I would say is pretty even in regards to, the Zari roles on these teams between Nene and Decay. That's going to be a really exciting match in particular with the 1v1 situation there. I feel like in this current meta, that Shaz's playstyle is a lot more potent and effective in the 3-3 compared to his counterpart in Jonak. And I feel like ultimately that amount of pressure is going to be the thing that gives the LA Gladiators the edge. Now that being said, if I were to put a split on it, I would probably say this one is leaning closer towards 55-45. It's just a matter of which way I end up tipping on Friday, because who knows, I might second-guess myself and just tilt New York Excelsior in hopes to just see the Shock dominate them to aid the Big Two discussion for, our next episode. But this one is going to be a barn burner, so stay tuned on Friday for this one. And of course, to wrap it up, on Friday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time, we have the Vancouver Titans, who are coming in as a number 3 seed. Even though they're second overall, technically, in the stand-ins when you look at, the website and over.gg, all that stuff, but they didn't win their division because of the Shock's perfect stage, or golden stage. But you have the Titans going up against the Dallas Fuel, and these teams did meet in this stage. That was back in Stage 2, Week 3, and the Titans defeated the Fuel 4-0 in that one. I'd say, the Fuel, pretty rough. Titans, basically, have really been tested primarily by the Shock. There's been a couple of situations with heavy DPS compositions that have kind of thrown them for loops. But, that was earlier in Stage 1, and I feel like with a couple of additional looks at this stage with DPS comps, they have looked a little bit better. But we haven't seen enough, comparisons DPS v DPS to really gauge where they are right now, even if, the meta shifts at this point. So it's really hard to kind of, grade them on where they would be if, we go back to Dive, which, granted, way back when, 8-10 months ago, they were the best team in Korea at that meta too, but a lot of things have changed since then. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to be rooting for the Titans. I feel like they are still going to sweep the Shock, or they'll sweep the Fuel. So it'll be an early exit for Dallas, who, they barely missed the playoffs in Stage 1. They make it in Stage 2, and they're going to have an early exit. But it's just an unfortunate draw for them. But I really feel like whether or not, London ended up being the 2 seed or the 3 seed, I would still tilt in one of the Korean teams' favor over Dallas in this opening round.
I'm just going to say this running long. Weird. Shocker. We're running long on Heroes Never Die. Titans 4-0. Just plain and simple. Sucks, Dallas fans. Yay, you made it, but you're facing the Titans. You're going to lose. Maybe it's 3-1 when Bumper busts out Torbjorn in map 4 after winning the first 3 maps.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, you're going to lose. You're getting knocked out of the play. Plain and simple.
So, with that being said, I know, you and I have basically split who we think is going to end on top of this stage when all is said and done. You have tipped, the San Francisco Shock.
Yep.
I'm still sticking with, the Vancouver Titans. So, do you have any hot takes for our perceived Stage 2 finals?
Yeah, I mean, we both agree that it's Titans. So I think we both kind of come to that conclusion. I would say hot takes. Bumper will lose it for them.
Is that really a hot take, though?
Yeah. No, it's just gonna be one of those things. I think the Titans are gonna realize what's Bumper's gonna get over aggressive as always, but the swing vote might actually be Rascal. And I talked about this last. Is Rascal right now is the best Baptiste in the league. I don't think it's close, really. Because he's played it the most, and I think him playing Baptiste could throw the Titans for a loop, and the damage he can put out from that, plus the healing he could output from that, could really, screw with the Titans, because not many teams are running Baptiste on a fairly large scale. Another thing that the Titans are susceptible to, as you might call it, is Sombra play. Sombra play a lot of times can screw with a 3-3 team. And Sinatraa, statistically, is the number 1 Sombra player in Overwatch League right now.
Which is interesting, too, because, when you watch him, it doesn't really feel that way.
It doesn't feel dominant, but the thing is the team's winning.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really like. It's not like with RCK. RCK is a great ensemble, but when he plays really well, the team actually wins. Whereas the Shock is they're always winning. So it's like nothing's changed. So I think Rascal and Sinatra playing Sombra and Baptiste could really sway it in the favor of the San Francisco Shock.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if Haxel is like, screw you guys, I'm going Genji.
Potentially.
I'm
more prone to believe this. You know, Sinatra, let's say he's gonna bring out, the Sombra. Haxel has this uncanny ability to have that sixth sense and see the Sombra come and turn and shield bash the EMP, which we have seen quite a few times this season.
Now, all right. Do you think if Sinatra plays well, it kind of debates Haxel? You know what? You think you can get away with Sombra play? Try and prevent my Genji play. Like, I tried to do the one-upsmanship. Because that is an MO of the Titan, is they want to one-up everyone. They just do. It's what they want to 4-0 everyone. They want to prove they're better than everyone at everything they do.
Here's the thing. I feel like most of that isn't being put forth in series that have this much at stake. And I don't think we'll see a situation where they're going to go Genji v Sombra. But a lot of the approach is when it comes to the offensive side of the game. Because that's basically what we've been seeing. We see Shock put up these monster times, and then you see the Titans come in and be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Watch what I can do. And then they just, like, speed run it right after them, and then you get these crazy time big situations. But when they're put into a spot where... I don't want to say, like, if they're put in a spot where, like, they actually feel like they have to try, then they really, put the foot on the gas. Because that's more NYXL's MO. And then sometimes they just forget, like, there's a pedal there. I don't think you're going to see that from the Titans in this case. But one way or another, both of these teams, at times, have much better offense than defense. But both have really come out on top in some key clutch situations, and it's really hard to equate how many times they're going to be able to do that before their luck kind of runs out in that regard.
No, I get that. Like, I mean, if I was to say one matchup in this that is less flashy but could become like the ultimate deciding factor, it's the off-tank matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So, John versus Chorobin. Like, it's one of those things where that matchup could really decide the entire thing. Both teams have the ability to flip, like you said, they have the ability to flip it on and flip it off at the same time. Titans especially, like when they are backs against the wall, they have a tendency to flip it on and be like, nope, we're just going to dominate you like you've never seen before. Which we kind of saw a little bit of last stage in the finals. Backs against the walls going into, Rialto. It's like, okay, we're going to set the record for the quickest time. Come at me, bro. Like, it's... If one thing is for certain, is if these two teams play in the finals against each other, expect one of the better matchups you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, the last time they played Stage 1, probably the best series of Overwatch I've ever seen in my life. And
it's definitely the best Overwatch League match we've seen.
And like, it's hard not to expect that this time as well, if it is them in the final. Because I think the Outlaws... not Outlaws. What am I doing?
That's another alternate reality that you're coming from.
The Shock have actually gotten better since last stage because they've had more time to work together as a team. Because Rascal wasn't with playing with them the entire time in stage 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be interesting. I totally looking forward to this, and it's going to be a great matchup. Sunday is going to be fun.
My biggest wish for the stage finals would be for the Shock to just sweep everyone until the grand finals, only to get swept by the Titans. Like, they all might be close matches, but if the Titans roll in and just 4-0 the Shock in the stage 2 finals, and, you know, just a more crushing defeat sense, like, I want to see what that does to the Shock's mentality. But that being said, like, I don't expect that to happen, but for me, that would just be, like, the ultimate, like, not of the cap for the Titans to be really the elite proven team throughout this season so far. And if they, like, trounce the Shock, like, I feel like at that point they are kind of on a pedestal at that point, maybe more so than some people might have them on now. But one way or another, you know, I really hope we do get that Stage 1 Finals rematch, because that is the best possible scenario for a really close finals. But definitely tune in on Sunday, that is Mother's Day, at 10 a.m. Pacific time, when the Stage 2 Finals are played. And of course, you know, the semis are the day prior, starting at 12 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday. But with that being said, Ed, I know we are running over. No shocker there.
I am shocked.
But
I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I've guested on a podcast in the past week, and that one. We're going to be, me and you will be on a show in like 2 weeks together on another one. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that one will run long.
All I'm going to say is good luck to whichever host moderates that.
Oh yeah, no. It's going to be a shit show. Like, you're looking 2 hours. We'll have more information once we get closer to that.
Absolutely, but with that being said, guys, if you want to help us out, the best thing to do is to go leave us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. We're always looking for ways to improve the show, to make for a better listening experience for you guys. If you want to find additional content, you know, we always have Overwatch Recall, where we have a listing of Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League, basically all things and everything Overwatch, on our website at owlnshow.com/OWRecall. And then every Sunday night, I release the episodic listings from all your favorite Overwatch-related podcasts as part of the weekly recall, which is on our website and also posted on our Twitter feed at OWRecall. Now, if you would like to support our podcast network further, you know, there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can throw us your Twitch Prime subs on Twitch, for one. You know, those are always good, too. What?
I was doing the huzzah.
Oh. I was like, what is he doing over here? But anyway, so you can do that. You know, that's free. Or, you know, you could throw some money at us over on Patreon. We have tiers starting at just $1 a month. And more information can be found at www.patreon.com/OWLnetwork. So you too can join the likes of our master patrons and above, Blazing Bob, Brendan, and Gabby, in helping our network grow. So I want to thank everyone again for your continued support, whether it is just hanging out in Twitch chat, throwing, you know, Twitch Prime subs our way, you know, throwing money either on Twitch or Patreon, or just, you know, being a part of our active Discord community. We appreciate all of the support. But Ed, we have a plethora of ways how our listeners can get a hold of us. So why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that?
Good word usage. Plethora is not used enough. So you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at hndoverwatch. We do have a website where we release our videos and our power, and that is at www.owlnshow.com. We do have, that's our YouTube channels, youtube.com/network. I screwed up. We are on Discord, so come join us over on Discord. That's discord.me/OWLnshow. We are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show. We are a Twitch affiliate, as Totem mentioned. You can subscribe to us using your Amazon Prime, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly. So Mondays, we have the Overwatch League Network. That's at 7 p.m. Pacific. On Tuesdays, we have OWL by the Numbers. That's our fantasy podcast, and that's at 6 p.m. Pacific. We have this show, Heroes Never Die, airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, and then we have host streams when available. We'll fall on Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific with Totem, and Spider is planning on streaming on our channel tomorrow night, actually. That would be May 9th.
That's assuming he's streaming. I know it changes Thursdays and Fridays quite a bit. But, you know, during, like, the mid-season break, I would expect our Twitch channel to pick up, I wouldn't say extensively, but we will be on it more frequently than what we have been on here in recent months.
I would expect more game night type situation, or do workshop maps, because that really expands a lot of the fun times you can have with the community, is doing some of these gun games and stuff like that. So definitely keep an eye on our Discord, discord.me/OWLN show, to see when we'll be doing that. And as Totem mentioned, we do have our Patreon, patreon.com/OWL network. So come over there, help us tiers starting at just $1 a month. You can reach me, Edanar, on Twitter at Edanar Overwatch, EDANAR Overwatch. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I am over on Twitter at Totally Drunk CTR, trolling mostly Houston Outlaws fans.
I mean, that's pretty easy.
The jokes almost write themselves, because really they are the punchline.
I mean, the real joke are the Outlaws.
Right. That's what I'm gonna
like all you have to say is Outlaws, and then you're like, your joke's complete. So
now, something that we're not joking about is the fact that you and I are both going to BlizzCon this year, which we did not even bring up. So if you guys are going to BlizzCon, please let us know.
Yes. Now the thing is, most people have probably stopped the podcast, so I'm definitely going to be bringing this up at the beginning of our next show, BlizzCon. Like, dude, this will be my first BlizzCon, and I want to meet as many of our listeners as possible, and I'm going to make myself readily available. And I will throw this out there. If you buy me enough drinks, I will, word for word, sing Crisscross. I'm just throwing that out there. I know every word to Jump by Crisscross, and if I'm drunk enough, I will sing it. So, and I promise I will not dislocate my knee doing so.
I mean, I would hope not. That would be a terrible time to do it.
50-50 shot I dislocate my knee. But I will still do it.
And with that being said, I do want to thank everyone for hanging out with us tonight on Twitch for our live show. This has been Heroes Never Die, episode number 159.
We're old.
We are old. Quick sidetrack. Omnic Lab is going to be recording episode 150. I don't know if it already happened yet, but I know they're recording a 150 at some point this week, at some point. And I know Rob May tweeted about, you know, celebrating that. And I'm like, yeah, us OGs are getting old. And he's like, you're old. I was like, yeah, you know, just doing so many podcasts really progresses the aging process.
Well, like, when you think of it, they have 100, they're doing the 150th, and we're doing, like, what, 159? And that doesn't seem that's that drastic, but then you're like, oh, wait, that's 2 months longer than them. Like, that's still a long time. Like, really, it's us, Omnic Lab, and High Noon are really the ones that have been around for flipping ever.
Yeah, it looks like they recorded a 149 and that released today. So expect that episode 150 within the next week. So whenever that happens, we'll be sure to let you guys know. We'll probably try to stop by if we can, assuming I'm not working, because I know they kind of record early mornings. But with that being said, we are closing out for sure now. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully everyone got their BlizzCon tickets tonight during our recording. And if not, there are going to be other services that you could use potentially to pick up that ticket, but we will see you guys back next week. Have a good night. Enjoy the stage playoffs.
Have a good one.